meeting. There is some changes to the agenda, and if I can just refer you to your agenda, items 7, 10, 11 and 12 will not be taken at this meeting. They are deferred, and this is because we are in the pre-election period, which started at 4 o'clock this afternoon. And so that is being deferred. Other than that, it's as they run in the morning paper, as they would say. So the first thing is, do we have any apologies? I don't think.
No, we're full house.
I got a full house, which is good to see. Declarations of interest, please note those if you think you have any. We're not going into part 2.
Just the sign of the minutes.
Yeah, sign the minutes. You agree on sign the minutes? People, it's a true record, and that's between Duncan and Laura. Well done. So that's been done. Thank you very much. There are no public questions received, so we go straight into item 6. Keep up with yourself. Yeah. Item 6, which is the local authority housing fund, round 3 funding. So round 3, ding ding. Ian.
Thank you, Chair. As you say, this is the 3rd time this council has been invited to bid for funding under the government's local authority housing fund, or LAF for short. This funding is used to deliver high quality temporary accommodation for homeless families and refugees. In this case, it will be used for families in the Afghan resettlement scheme. Previously, under rounds 1 and 2, the council successfully housed 7 families who moved into their new homes, and there's a further number of families awaiting that, and we're going through a sort of matching process. This time around, the council has been allocated just short of 600,000 to purchase 4 more homes. Now, under the terms of the grant fund agreement, council would also need to contribute a further 297,000 to that. What I'm recommending to you today is that the council uses some uncommitted Section 106 funding for that purpose. So if approved by Exeter and Council, that additional budget will be used to purchase 4 ex-council homes off the open market, and that would enable the council to meet some of its temporary accommodation needs without having to borrow any money, and does represent value for money, especially when one considers that once those families have been resettled, the council can use those homes for other wider housing needs. So full details set out in my report, along with various options and the detailed recommendations. In summary, I'm seeking your authority under delegated powers and with the portfolio holder to sign a memorandum of understanding, and an unsigned version of that is also attached to the report, and that would access the grant funding and enable us to complete the purchases. The other thing to note is that there is a deadline on that, completing that memorandum of understanding, which is the 10th of June. So that's why there's a need for an extraordinary council meeting next Monday. So unfortunately, if you're happy to recommend that, then I'm going to have to bring you all back next Monday evening, and I'm very sorry about that. So that concludes my summary. I'm happy to take questions through the chair.
Thank you, Ian. Yeah, don't worry about it. We'll be there next Monday. That's what we've signed up for. Option 2, which is the recommendation that is recommended here. There are 7 sort of recommendations, which are on page 18, and item 3 makes reference to the £297,000. So going forward in this year, I generally Jeremy. I will be coming to the leaders, so if you want to just raise your hand if you want to say anything on the item. Okay. Councillor Moore.
Thank you very much, and thank you to officers for their work on this. This is a really important piece of work. I think there are two issues which I think need addressing. First of all, I appreciate being told that there's been a delay in matching up people to the houses that were bought previously, and I'd like to know the reason for this. And secondly, in terms of the 2-bedroom accommodation, that's £100 over the local housing allowance rate, which means people who may be on benefits will have to find additional funds. So I would like to understand why that rent is proposed at a higher level than the local housing allowance, and the other two property sizes are at the local housing allowance level, which seems perfectly appropriate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Leah. Much more basic point in that we are in an election period, and this decision has been made this time into a financial year. Can we be assured that this money is guaranteed whatever the outcome of the general election, whether this government party exists after the general election?
I've already asked that question. My understanding is that is the situation at this moment in time. That you're asking me to look into the future, and who knows? But as we sit now, it is. So no reason why we shouldn't do it.
Yeah, no.
All right. So I just thought I wanted to clear that up because that's more about procedure on how we go with things. And thank you for that. If there's nobody else, I'll open this up to the floor. Any other members of the executive wish to say anything? Councillor Wright.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I forgot what I was going to say. No, I'll go back to it. Sorry. So, in effect, this is the money that we will be contributing means we're going to get 4 houses for 74p each in them. I want to just ask about the bit at the back of the report, just to clarify about the council overbuild programme and land properties, because it's talking now about other options, so that seems to be talking about other options for section 106. Money is, if that's the case, yes, it says there, but just to clarify that if this same amount of section 106 went towards council overbuild programme and lands at the moment, it still wouldn't be enough to generate what we need to have to actually make that programme happen. So it isn't really an either or. Could you just clarify that for me, please?
Okay, we'll cover at the end. Deal with it. Anybody else want to come in on anything? Yeah. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. On the back of my fake packet, I make that £897,000, so that's just shy of £225,000 per dwelling. Shall I ask the officers, are we getting value for money on that?
Okay, we can answer that one in a moment, for sure. Is there anybody else? So I got 2 new members of the executive wanting to come in, but Councillor Olcott, welcome to the executive.
Thank you, Chair. I had a question on the outlay costs for the maintenance and repairs. So one of the pros of option 1 is that buying new builds would mean potentially fewer upfront costs, fewer repair costs. But it looks like it's the same sum for repairs for both options, and I was just curious about that and how that figure was arrived at, and if that fully reflects the potential costs of buying former council homes instead.
Okay, good point. And also, welcome to the executive, Councillor Dishart.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think notwithstanding the questions that have been asked, which I think are good questions, and look forward to hearing the answers, I'm supportive in principle of this recommendation. It's clearly a targeted government scheme that we would be taking advantage of. I think it's worth us saying here that Exeter is a welcoming city to all people in need, and there's clearly a benefit to our housing provision in the medium and long term, as well as an immediate benefit in terms of the additional temporary accommodation, which will help to relieve in a small way, but nevertheless, important way, the homelessness issues. And also note the overall, overwhelmingly really positive impact within the equality impact assessment. So I echo others and thank the officers for their work on this and look forward to the answers to those questions, but certainly minded to support this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Vizard. And I'll come to our third new member of the executive, Councillor Ashin.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say that I very much welcome this report and thank you to the officers for all their hard work. I particularly echo what Councillor Vizard says. I support this, well, not just in principle, but completely, because as far as I can tell, there's no downside to it. And thank you very much. I look forward to hearing the answers from our officer.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And so, Ian, if you could come back, there's a few points that's been raised. What about, is it value for money? About the outlay on some of the maintenance, the £100 run over the rate, and the other issue that Councillor Moore raised, if that may need a further response other than what's in here, please do that. But if you can quickly address those, I'd rather deal with them now if we can, because they are related to the recommendations.
Thank you, Chair. So we'll have to come back to Councillor Moore on the question about the delay in the matching of families as the team of that, as well as the why the rents proposed are higher than the local authority housing allowance. We will provide a written response through you, Chair.
I'd like to hear that.
On that. And I think the question about the guarantee funding, as you answered that, and our understanding is that this is, but it's already been agreed, you know, and if we sign the MOU, it's you know, that effectively releases the funding. So, in terms of the land property, so we wanted to set out in the report for full transparency, really, you know what we could consider using those Section 106 fundings for. Just to be really clear, we could put that 297,000 towards funding of the land scheme, but we would still have to borrow something like almost 2 million still to complete that project, unless we could find other sources of funding. So it would, we wanted to present that in the sense to say that is a legitimate use of Section 106 funding as well, just for transparency, but it wouldn't enable us to complete that project in itself. In terms of the question about value for money, so one of the interesting things about this, the way the government calculates the amount of money it awards local authorities, it does a calculation based on what it considers to be the median house price in a particular area. We don't have any say over that, how they calculate that. However, they have calculated that to be in Exeter to be 300,000. So even if one was to use that figure, this would still come under that. However, I'd also say that if we were looking to purchase homes on the open market that were new build, that figure would significantly increase, and we would have to find significantly more money to add to the grant. And that also plays then into Councillor Alcott's question, I think, about the outlay costs. It's really interesting, this. I think it's interesting. That one would assume that a new build property, there would be less maintenance and less cost for our teams. In actual fact, that what we found in rounds 1 and 2 is that there's actually more burden on the teams and their costs, because some of those new build homes do not meet our more stringent requirements for things like electricity connections and gas appliances. So really interesting that we have better standards for our council houses and our tenants than what would be required by house builders. And so what we have to do therefore on the new build properties is go in and fix those problems, which is more expensive. So buying ex-council houses, we don't have that problem. And so it kind of balances out in the end because they're older and probably do need a bit of looking after. But nevertheless, I think it just shines a light on how great it is to be having council houses and keep them to a standard that's greater than a private developer.
Okay, thank you, Ian. So those are the seven recommendations. I'm going to move them from the chair. Can I have a seconder, please? I appreciate your enthusiasm. So all those in favour?
That's unanimous, Chair. That has been unanimous.
Don't worry, Councillor, you get to do that a lot. Vote for stuff. And now, as I said earlier, we'll move straight to item 8, which is members' allowances and expenses paid. And here we are. These are the recommendations that we note these allowances that have been paid. So who's doing this? Mark?
Okay, Chair. So this is just the annual statutory reports we have to bring each year. Just to say, as you said, Chair, it's just for members to note when the allowance is paid in the last municipal year, and we just have a statutory obligation to publish those figures for full transparency, which are attached to this appendix A.
Okay. Do you have any particular question? No. Councillor Williams.
It's just an observation that I have that I think members of the committee might be interested to observe that now that we've gone down from 9 members of the executive to 8, there's a productivity increase of 12.5%. I thought I'd, yeah, so that's really good value for money. So there you go.
Yes, we are lucky really insofar as that we're a very nicely formed and compact city, and therefore travel expenses travel expenses isn't high in this authority. Councillor Wright.
Thank you. Having said that, mine does glare at you because I've got £500 and something expenses on there. I would just like to point out, I thank the council, that was for 3 weekend training courses, 2 conferences. So that was value for money for my personal development. Thank you very much. It wasn't my sandwiches and crisps.
Well, first of all, we're not going to get into the area of examining what people have and why, because that's not what we're going to do, and that wouldn't be appropriate. That is there for people. We're obliged to do it, and I think it's right that we do. So we're noting it. Councillor Pong.
Yeah,
I want to explain why you've had your allowances.
One from a face and beer, it's all right. My wife pointed out to me a couple of days ago that all our allowances have been published on the web with names, etc. I wonder where that came from. All right. It's just that she came across it and that she wasn't sure of the problems or whatever, but everyone was kind of named and what they had. So that's just a figure of information and normal, you know.
Transparency, I ain't got a problem with that. I'm not sure if anybody else is. But happy for people to see how poorly we are.
It's historical archive as well.
Yeah, for our, compared to some people, But there we are. So there. I didn't think this one was going to be a long one. Councillor Williams.
I just noticed
Again.
that there's only 1 Williams down.
Oh, this is last
Before he was on it.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
You might see some names on there, but
Yeah,
back a
right.
bit further as well.
There will be 2 next year, and progressively they are taking over. Right. Am I safe to move this recommendation to note it? Can I have a seconder, please?
Sure. Yes, I'll second.
All those in favour?
As unanimous, Chair, that has been carried.
And here we are. We go on now to item 9, which is the Exeter Port Authority and the role of the duty holder. And here you will see we have 2 recommendations, which is appointing the executive together with having the required training. Those are the 2 recommendations. So, David, tell us what we're in for.
Thank you, Chair. So, as you may know, Exeter City Council are the statutory harbour authority for the Port of Exeter, and the area over which we are responsible includes the estuary, and that's from Black Allawea, which is just outside the Melney Ex, all the way to the Safe Water Mark, which is a mile out to sea off Exeter Beach, and that also includes the Exeter Ship Canal, so that's the port and the harbour together. So ports and harbours are governed by the Department for Transport via the Marine Management Organisation. And the DFT issued the Port Marine Safety Code, which is referred to in the paper, and accompanying best practice. And that's best practice guidance. And that's all for the management of ports and harbours. And because we are the statutory harbour authority, we are expected to comply with the contents. So as a council, we previously stated it was our ambition to comply with the Port Marine Safety Code, and we did that back in April 2020. So the report lists some of our responsibilities in section 8.1, and it explains the Port Marine Safety Code in more detail in 8.2, so I won't go into the detail of that. But the big bits in there, the important bits for the duty holder, or compliance and insurance, compliance and assurance, sorry. So within the code, it introduces 2 main roles, one of those being the duty holder, which is the subject of the report, and the other is the designated person. And the Port Marine Safety Code is really intended for the duty holder. And for most organisations, that's the members of the organisation who are ultimately responsible for marine safety. So in commercial reports, that's generally senior management team. But in municipal ports, there are quite a number of different models, and they range from a single person, so that can be an elected member or a senior manager. That can be the executive committee, and examples of that are Somerset Council. It could be a separate committee of elected members, or it could actually be full council, and that's the one that Cornwall choose. And initially it was anticipated that I would be the duty holder, but when I went on the duty holder training with Associated British Ports, they highlighted the fact that a single person is not considered to be a particularly robust model, and that's largely because the responsibility cannot be delegated in any way, shape or form. And in addition to that, individuals don't normally have the responsibility or the power to set budgets or policy. So most typically in municipal ports, it is a committee of elected members in some form. And that, I think, strikes the balance between accountability and not being too unwieldy to manage. So what does the duty holder do? So they are essentially responsible, making sure that the organisation, i.e. officers, comply with the code. So you're there to make sure that officers do comply with the code. And they do this really by appointing this designated person. So this designated person is there to audit officers and the harbour authority and report that compliance back to the duty holder and make recommendations. So the duty holder will then consider them and act upon the recommendations where appropriate. So we considered that the exec was the most efficient and manageable way of fulfilling our responsibility as the duty holder. So that's hence the recommendation.
Okay, so just you can help me before we go into the discussion. So the executive are the duty holder of the Port of Exeter Authority, is that correct?
Correct.
All right.
So that's what we're recommending.
recommended.
Yeah.
Now, this recommendation is dealt with tonight, it's not going to council, am I correct in saying that? It should be resolved, I think, okay. So the decision was the disposed in how many days?
As five, it's well, close to 10.
So each member of us needs to update our declarations of interest to the council that we are, or that needs to go on to our declarations because people will want to know that and see that. I'm just saying that although you've got 28 days beyond that to comply, and I will be checking. And so, okay, on that point, did any of the opposition leaders, Councillor Moore?
Thank you. It's interesting to see the level of thought and effort that's gone into working out which is the right body to hold this responsibility. It's obviously not been easy, and it's clearly quite an onerous responsibility. The report makes it clear that there'll be training, but obviously I'm not sure that all my colleagues are also experienced in this area. Like, we're not all experts in all of these areas that we have oversight of. So, the designated person seems to have a particular role in ensuring compliance, but not actually offering experience. So I'd like to know how how everybody will be advised in terms of enabling that compliance. And the second question I have, so that's not intended as a slight for any member of the executive. It's really a genuine question. The second question is because of the onerous nature of this role, and it sets out quite clearly that individuals, individually and collectively responsibility, what will the extent of the indemnity be that's provided by the council for this role?
Okay, thank you. And rest assured that's been answered before. Councillor Mitchell.
Following on from what Councillor Moore said, could you outline again for us, I think, the duty holder's responsibility to ensure that the executive are aware of what is happening? There's no good them having the training and never getting reports and never finding anything's happening. So is there a legal responsibility on the duty holder to regularly report to the executive on the workings of the Harbour Group, so that there is a process to which it follows through, which the executive then are accountable because they've had reports?
Always happy for us to report to ourselves. Councillor, okay, thank you. Do I have any other members of the executive? Councillor Asdash.
Thank you, Chair. Just a nice easy one. It says that we should do training, which is 2 half days. Does that last forever, or is that an ongoing training session?
Yes, well, coming at the end, Ruth. Anybody, any other member? Got your sea legs. I was out on the estuary yesterday. It was beautiful, it was lovely. And okay, nobody else? Councillor Williams.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is just to let people know that it's the next step in our quest to get a harbour revision order. We started that process probably getting on for a year ago now. So this is all part of our route as well, actually getting a duty holder appointed and then designated person. So I'm looking forward to the executive starting on this very important role.
Okay, thank you very much. As for how it's all going to be done, that's what we'll find out. And I can assure people who aren't on the executive that we are asking these questions. We take it very, very seriously. I myself will be asking whether or not, is it 2 half days? Is it, whether that's enough, to be brutally honest. And I will make it sure, because it's not just a tick in the box exercise for us. What that we are going to be, as I saw lots of people with their speedboats all on the Warren yesterday enjoying the sunshine, it's not my role to go out to enforce that. We won't be given a badge or a hat or anything else like that to go out and to do things. It's more of a the strategic responsibility, but you'll tell us all about that. And what I would be happy to do is for us to give a bit of a report back, either at this council meet, at the executive, or at future scrutiny meetings to allow that. I'm quite happy for all that. This is no secret society or anything else like that. So I'm happy to let that all open in the interest of transparency. And I assume, monitoring officer, we have a degree of vicarious liability as long as we act within the law and act responsibly. And if we do, if we are challenged or anything, we're covered just as if the planning committee is taken to anywhere else or any other person. You're only going to be responsible if you neglect stuff and do that, or neglect advice and make decisions against advice, or which is out with the law.
Sorry, Lee, but
Yeah.
well, the key issue there is you'll have the designated person who will be providing advice and guidance on the duties and how you comply with your obligations to policy.
Thank you. So there we are. We've got it. So, okay. Yeah, I was involved in a lot of this when I was in the RNT with the seafarers and everything else like that. So I do understand a bit of it. But I'm not keen on boats. But anyway, not that I need to go on many of them. So we've got two recommendations there. I'm going to move those recommendations from the chair. Can I have a seconder, please?
Seconded.
Okay, so those are the recommendations, guys. All those in favour, please show.
That's unanimous, Chair, and carried.
And you'll be sending us about, can you not do it before the 4th of July, please? A bit busy. So there we are, that's the agenda. I saw Councillor Poll come in. We have deferred item 12, Councillor. I know you wanted to speak on that.
Oh, okay.
Deferred. I thought you might have been told that.
No.
Oh, all right, then it's been deferred until the 9th of July.
Oh, okay.
When just to say, the executive meeting for the 26th of June will not be held on the 26th of June because we've got a full council meeting in July, and any decisions we could have made on the 26th of June could have been enacted unless they were resolved afterwards until the 9th of July. So we until the July 17th or whatever it is. Yeah, the executive, the full council. So we just about deferred to them. So it will be a longer agenda on the 9th of July, everybody.
Thank you. It's been very interesting listening to your debate.
Sorry?
It's been very interesting listening to your debate.
Thank you. I'm going to make a note of that. Thank you very much. So thank you all for attending, and best of luck with all your endeavours and officers. Thank you very much. Okay, good night, everybody.
Thank you.